We're back.
Brilliant. We're back.
Episode 9, if I'm not mistaken. I meant to check.
I don't think you're mistaken. So I'm riding with episode 9 of On My Screen.
And 2 new movies.
Once again, here to bring it.
This week we have Whiplash 2014 and Synecdoche, New York 2008.
Couple of doozies, if you ask me.
Yeah. If it's all the same to you, can we start with Whiplash?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
What's up?
So you recommended this one.
I did.
And if I remember correctly, you had never seen it?
I never seen it. I would hear over the years how it's a good movie. I've seen a pretty glowing review of it by some critics that I respect. And I've always wanted to watch it. I never had a reason to, so I said, fuck it, let's just watch it. Check it out.
Yeah. So we did take a little break.
Yeah. Thanksgiving break.
Hopefully you guys missed us. But yeah, so we chose on these movies. The first week, I kind of just wasn't up to it. I had already seen Whiplash.
Okay.
And
You had an opinion of it already.
I did have an opinion of it already. But I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm not feeling that. Choose another movie. So I was like, let's do it. But then this past week, I was ready, and you hadn't watched Synecdoche yet. So here we are this week.
We synced up.
We're synced up, ready to rock.
Yeah.
What did you think of Synecdoche? Or no,
Whiplash.
Yeah.
Well,
Breaking the
see,
order.
I liked it quite a bit, but I
Okay.
liked it for different reasons. Like I feel like I think I discussed with you. I think like the theme of the movie is like manipulation. So like J.K. Simmons' character is manipulating. I be forgetting people's names.
Miles.
Miles
Spider-Man.
Teller. Yeah, Spider. And in a way, he's manipulating the situation with J.K. Simmons' character. So I kind of like that about the film. I didn't really get a pretentious vibe from it or any kind of like nothing like that. You know.
So I sort of didn't love this movie the first time, and the reason I was kind of excited to come back is I was like, maybe I can, because I wasn't exactly sure why I didn't it didn't really jive with me, but so this time I was kind of a little more excited to try to find out exactly what it was that I found a little off. And I do think it's a good movie. I did enjoy watching it the second time.
What'd you find, my man?
I watched a video kind of on it after watching it, and they kind of pointed out a couple of things that I found like, okay, that makes it a little more interesting. Like they kind of compared it to Black Swan.
I always wanted to see that.
Which I think it was kind of just, that was like about Natalie Portman being like obsessed with ballet to the point where it drives her to insanity. In this, it was kind of same thing, but drums. And
wanted to be the
the
greatest drummer.
The J.K. Simmons kind of reminded me of like Arlie Ermy in Full Metal Jacket. Yeah. But I think ultimately the thing that I kind of was like, it's like I never really sympathize with Miles. Like I kind of just don't care.
No, I don't sympathize with him either.
Like, and there's,
I like that though.
it's like I don't care if he becomes a great drummer. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about anything that happens to him. Really, it's like
The movie is showing like the folly in that.
I think they want you to care about him and what happens to him.
Really?
I think so. And
maybe we're heartless.
I think the main thing too is like his opinion of himself and like his whole self-worth as a musician is wrapped up in what, I forget his name in the Fletcher.
Yeah.
Fletcher thinks of him, and it's just like I kind of found that like a great musician, and I just felt like a great musician in school like that with like this oppressive teacher who's trying to like destroy him. He would just be like, I don't need this. Like, I'm a great musician. I can do it without, you know what I mean? So it was like this whole pursuit of proving Fletcher or proving himself to Fletcher, I was just like, just stop, dude. Like I couldn't, like, I feel like the part of it that I can sympathize with is like wanting to be great, and like that's the part that everybody can kind of like, but in the video is kind of saying that too, like what's the cost of greatness, and even like when do you know you've achieved it? Like that scene where they're at dinner and they're talking about Charlie Parker and and like his family's like, oh, he died a drug addict, and he's like, yeah, but he was like a brilliant musician. It even scenes like that, it's just like I see what they're trying to do. It's just like I'm not into this, like the way that they're doing it.
I saw it more of like Fletcher is using Miles's want to become this greatest drummer of all time. He's using that. He's manipulating that piece of him, almost like a cult-like figure. You know what I mean? Like he's very charismatic in a way. And not to say that I'm on Miles. There's no side to take here. I think they're both deplorable characters. Ultimately, I don't feel that the movie made me feel anything for Miles. I think they were pretty abrupt showing early on, like, this guy's an airhead. He's all up his own ass about
he
this
doesn't
drumming
care
shit.
about anything but drumming, so why should you care about him?
There you go. Yeah.
I guess that may be the thing that I kind of didn't,
because
like
I still didn't feel shit for him, even at the end with the when the he was like outed on stuff. I didn't feel nothing for him.
Even like I kind of hate that accident. It's a lot of stuff that I really didn't like either. Like that accident scene, I was just like, this feels like so fake. Like he gets hit by a car and stumbles to the recital and
bleeding and shit.
And then even just like with the other student who passed and the way that Fletcher vaguely murdered him, like.
He didn't murder him. He inspired his murder. He inspired his
suicide.
Yes, basically.
I was just like, I'm not feeling this.
They were showing,
but it does have a lot of stuff I do like.
Yeah,
like
drumming scenes were incredible.
Yeah,
you can't deny that.
But it wasn't enough, I guess, for me to like. Like I said, I think. I'd rather watch a Drumline.
I like the drama in this. I liked Miles's character getting his just desserts, in my opinion. Like especially with the female character, I forgot her name, the love interest. But when he screwed that up royally.
They did, but it's still like. Even that was like
it wasn't satisfactory.
Was inconsequential. All the relationships he had, like. Him with his dad and him with her, it's like they don't give you enough to like care about any.
I feel like him and the girl they had a budding romance, but he of course snipped it because of his own weird narcissistic, obsession.
One kind of interesting thing I saw in like this one video that was kind of breaking it down was the way that the guy kind of tried to structure it like a horror film. And like the way that he built up the suspense, and like even like with the last scene where the dad's at the recital and Fletcher embarrasses him and the dad goes to like try to comfort the son and he walks off, but then he comes back and then he like gives that final look.
Yeah.
And the guy was the dad gives the final look to his son when he goes back on stage, and it's like that's kind of like the moment he realizes like, oh, he's given himself over to this. Like he's not like, he doesn't care about being a human anymore. He's a drummer.
He's a drummer first and foremost.
But yeah, they kind of talked about how it was a lot of horror type elements, but also one thing that kind of annoyed me, and I'm not sure if you noticed this, I definitely noticed it the second time, and I was kind of watching a little video on it, was like the color grading, how like how all of the scenes in like nature or whatever, like outside of the studio where they're rehearsing, are like very green tint.
Yeah,
and like all of the stuff where they're performing is like super yellow tint. And I mean, pretty much every movie employs like color grading at this point, but it's like it was so heavy-handed.
too much.
I think, yeah, like trying to like show how he's like uncomfortable here, like it's just like I was actually listening to another interview with Jim O'Rourke talking about music and kind of filmmaking too, but how when you make a movie, it's better to not have things be obvious. And he was talking about this in music too. Mm-hmm. Like to do something that's very impressive, but not in an obvious way, not to be like showing to the audience like, hey, this is what's going on here, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't it cool? Like, and I sort of felt like there was a little bit of that with this movie of like you're seeing them showing the techniques a little too much as opposed to just like a more naturalistic feel of like, I don't know. Does any of that make any sense, or does it kind of sound like I'm going off the rails?
No, I mean, you got something there. I just don't recall it like being too
obvious.
Too obvious about the technique. Well,
I think with the color grading, that was maybe the more.
Yeah, that was more obvious. I would give it that. You know, I didn't hate this movie, and I didn't love this movie. You know, I thought it was interesting. I'm glad I finally got a chance to see it. I did enjoy Miles Teller's performance. And of course, I thoroughly enjoyed J.K. Simmons' character. I know he's supposed to be a piece of shit and all that. I see him as a complex character. Yeah. Ultimately, he's an asshole.
I really wish that I got some clippage from this. I think there was a scene where he calls one of the students a worthless Jaime fuck. Yeah. It's just like, man, you don't hear that ever.
No, he starts going in racially, sexually. He going in on everybody.
Oh, another thing was that I saw in that video that I found kind of funny was like when his apparel or whatever is a thing that like in the beginning he's like wearing the white t-shirt, and as he progresses he's like wearing the black to like Fletcher. Mm-hmm. That's like a Star Wars thing. I think
like Jedis wear.
Well, the director Damien Chazelle, I think he said that was the first time he noticed like I forget exactly what it was, but he was inspired by Star Wars to do that, like when Luke becomes more dark and he's wearing like the black.
They do that in westerns too, like the guys who wear the black hats and the white hats.
I guess it's all from Kurosawa, Star Wars, and a lot of westerns.
Yeah.
Kurosawa. Did I have anything else? Oh yeah, the quote that I found good from that video, kind of breaking it down, was it's not about being great, it's about the cost.
Yeah.
I was like, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, and J.K. Simmons' character, he was selling that to Miles' character the whole movie. Yeah. You know, about the cost of it. You'll never be Charlie Parker. You know how he became such and such. And when he tells that story, he tells it with such like reverence, but
like that's the only way.
But the objective person is like, that's fucked up. You know, it's a fucked up story.
If you had to give it and I kind of thought, because I guess sort of moving on, we'll get the final score here soon too. After I watched Synecdoche and you hadn't seen it, I kind of considered switching it but the thing, I felt like the common thread between them is kind of like you have a character sort of obsessed with something. Yes. So I was like, let's stick with that. Yeah. Yeah. But on that note, do you want to give it a overall?
I give it a 70.
I'm not going to hate on that. I was thinking a nice solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Something around that range.
I'm not mad that I rewatched it. It will probably be a while before I rewatch it again.
I really enjoyed the sound mixing and everything involving sound here. I think they did a really good job with it. So, yeah. A good 7. It's a good score. You should see it. Yeah. Yeah. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's a good movie.
It is a good movie. So
now we got to move on. Oh, you. You did something, you recommended me this goddamn movie, boy.
So yeah, our next film, Synecdoche, New York, 2008,
In Synecdoche.
by Mr. Charlie Kaufman.
Charlie Kaufman.
His directorial debut.
Starring your boy, woo,
Big Phil.
Big Philly.
Dr. Phil.
Phyllis Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Back on the show.
Yeah, this movie had a lot of good actors. I had not seen it.
I also had seen it.
I have seen Adaptation, Being John Malkovich, and Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah, I saw those last two. Yeah.
All of them. It's been a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but
What a doozy, boy.
yeah, this was a weird movie.
Yes.
I didn't know anything about it. I had just always seen that poster kind of the warehouse and the title, and I kind of just was like, I knew Charlie Kaufman. I was like, okay, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
When did you watch it?
Today.
You watched it today?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So I watched it, I guess, if I was ready last week, it maybe would have been like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say like initially right after I saw it that I felt like I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you don't say.
Like the main thing was like, man, that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it was a drag.
But there were a lot of things I enjoyed about it, and I kind of knew that immediately after. Can you say you enjoyed anything about it?
There was a dark humor aspect to it.
Yeah.
There was like a playfulness about it.
There's an absurdity to
yes,
it.
yeah. There's
a
that.
like anything can happen aspect.
It helps.
Yeah,
it's
that
like
kind of like
the mayonnaise on a dry ass sandwich.
It is like a very dark movie.
Yes.
But at the same time, it has its own levity.
It's dreamlike as well.
It's very dreamlike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really made me want to check out, because I remember liking Eternal Sunshine, but thinking like, oh, I didn't know it was Charlie Kaufman at the time. I think I just like knew Jim Carrey, like, and I kind of maybe thought at the time like, oh, this is kind of like a indie breakup movie.
Yeah, something like that.
Definitely would revisit it. I have two friends that I talk to about movies, and just today I was like, let me kind of check in with them, see what they thought. And one of them was like very overwhelming, but Charlie Kaufman is my favorite screenwriter.
Okay. And
the other one said, I enjoyed it. I think it would have been better if he didn't direct it. And I kind of got his opinion on that.
Okay.
I don't know if did you look anything up about it or no?
I looked a few things up about it.
Very good Wikipedia page for this movie.
Oh yeah.
It goes into like a lot of the
themes.
Philosophy and the themes, and
a lot of thought went into
complexes and stuff. But the first thing that I saw that kind of made it make a little more sense for me is when I saw that the initial idea was to be a horror movie. Him and Spike Jonze actually. I guess him and Spike Jonze did maybe Adaptation or Being John Malkovich, one of those two. Spike Jonze, who did like Her and Jackass and skate videos and all that. So yeah, they were going to make a horror movie, but about things that Charlie found scary, not just like slasher, Freddy versus Jason type stuff. And I was like, sickness, death, loneliness, like existentialism. Yeah. All of that is scary, quote unquote,
dread
themes. So I was like, okay, that made me appreciate it a little bit more. And
yeah, because it's a certain deepness to it, bless you. Like even Philip Seymour Hoffman's character's name, his last name, Cotard. I was reading, it's like Cotard syndrome. Yeah. Where you're basically, you think you're dead.
And even like the wife's name.
Yeah, her name was Ellen or Evelyn or
Adele.
Adele Lack.
Adele Lack, yeah, which is like a lack of love, all the little. But what else did I was gonna say when I forgot what I was saying right before you mentioned Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's okay.
My boy Philly C.
like actual scary ideas and stuff like that. Oh,
Mm.
I watched a lot of Charlie Kaufman interviews like right after, and there's a really good like kind of compilation of interviews from this thing called Ebert Fest. I guess Roger Ebert was a big champion of this
Oh
movie,
shit! All right.
and they talked about it was him and one other female journalist. It was a very split
Okay.
movie, and it kind of seemed like the main thing that critics kind of threw at it or dismissed it with was it was pretentious. Which
I can see that
I could see how someone could say that, but at the same time,
upon first viewing. I can see that.
from watching all the Charlie Kaufman interviews, I could also see how much that affected him and how much he sort of felt just like people were just using that as a one word dismissal of like, you know what I mean? And I was just like,
It's like when people say indie.
yeah. But yeah, he's a really interesting guy. I love that. I felt like this movie was very Lynchian. Because like there's a thing that happens in a lot of David Lynch movies, apart from them feeling very dreamlike and even sometimes being completely about a dream or something like Mulholland. A lot of times, like a character will become another character.
Yeah.
Which happens towards the end
happens
of this.
in the end of this movie.
There's a lot of things I liked about it. Another thing that I was gonna say that kind of made me think of David Lynch is like when I was watching a lot of these Charlie Kaufman interviews and people would ask him specific things about the movie, he would just be like, yeah, I'm not going to explain it. And like,
oh, really?
They were even kind of talking about how he feels about like DVD commentaries and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, I hate the idea of talking over a movie. Like, oh, this happened this day for this scene. And like, you know, he's kind of more that
really
let the movie speak for itself type of guy.
Okay.
But
I could see that as being pretentious and not pretentious at the same time.
I feel that. I mean,
you know,
like going back to another Jim O'Rourke interview I thought about, he was kind of talking about how when you do an interview for a piece of work, like that's almost a whole other piece of work. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to have to talk about it. You know, like you want to be able to let the artwork do the talking.
Especially something like this that's deeply layered. It's meant for you to watch and gain your own interpretation of it.
And I personally feel I like artists and artworks where there is very little explanation needed. Like I feel like a lot of times if you have to talk about why it's good or if the process is what makes it good, it's like, no, it should be the work itself. But that's kind of going down a whole other...
Subjectively, I like it in certain movies. I like when it's done well.
Yeah.
I like when it's done well, which I give it to Charlie Kaufman. I think it's done well here because it makes... This movie was depressing as hell.
Yeah.
But it makes you want to re-examine it in a way because there are things that you catch along the way.
So many different things that I kind of wanted to rewatch it, but I was like, no, I'm not feeling it. But yeah, like,
man, you got to be in the right mood.
Yeah.
I don't even know what mood you have to be in to watch this. This is a rainy day movie.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know what mood.
Shit.
But another thing from the Ebert Fest, I didn't even finish it, but a thing that they were kind of talking about, this movie came out in 2008 and kind of how it was, he kind of said like, because it didn't do well in theaters.
Yeah, it bombed. Well, there's a conspiracy behind that.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
yeah,
I'll say he was basically saying that like movies like this, because it was a $20 million movie, which is relatively, it's kind of like a middle budget movie, which
really
I've heard a lot of directors. Well, low budget could be like 1 million,
true,
you know,
true.
so like
for studio,
versus,
though.
like high would be like 100 million. And I've heard directors say it's like easier to make like a huge, blockbuster type movie because like we're
Really?
like Fast and the Furious, you're going to get that money back.
Yeah.
So it's like you're easily going to get
Pressure's
that 100
off.
million or whatever it costs
Yeah.
versus something like who knows Charlie Kaufman, who knows what Synecdoche, New York means. Like, how do you make a trailer for this, So it was, and he kind of talked about how if this movie would have done really well, it would have helped movies like this to be made afterwards. But he was kind of like, yeah, like you might not see movies like this because this was such a failure.
It could be seen that way. The conspiracy, by the way, is it was only released to like 100 theaters, and relatively for 100 theaters, it did well, like for 100 theaters, but it was never really given the chance to have 1,000, 2,000 theaters.
I kind of saw another thing too, where I guess like it was just kind of he's just really like interesting, and it comes across as really open in interviews. I think he was kind of talking about how the film didn't get bought at Cannes, but he was kind of saying like how the media misrepresented that because like no film got picked up at Cannes, and like I guess it got picked up after or something. I don't know.
It did,
but yeah, I would say overall I liked it. Definitely makes me want to watch more of his stuff.
Not that movie again, but more of his stuff.
And I was actually saying,
your boy Philip Seymour Hoffman too.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Nobody plays a creep like him.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like the emasculated man kind of reminded me of Happiness a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was actually yesterday just looking at the quotes, and I was thinking some of them actually read a little bit better. Like it hit a little bit better when I was reading it. This one's kind of a long one. I don't know if I want to read it, but let me see. I'm gonna try to read it. Okay. It was the one from that funeral where the pastor just delivers that monologue. But it's everything is more complicated than you think. You only see a tenth of what is true. There are a million little strings attached to every choice you make. You can destroy your life every time you choose, but maybe you won't know for 20 years, and you can never even trace it to its source, and you only get one chance to play it out. Just try and figure out your own divorce. And they say there is no fate, but there is. It's what you create, and even though the world goes on for eons and eons, you're only here for a fraction of a second. Most of your time is spent being dead or not yet born. But while alive, you wait in vain, wasting years for a phone call or a letter or a look from someone or something to make it all right. And it never comes, or it seems to, but it doesn't really. And so you spend your time in vague regret or vaguer hope that something good will come along, something to make you feel connected, something to make you feel whole, something to make you feel loved. And the truth is, I feel so angry. And the truth is, I feel so fucking sad. And the truth is, I felt so fucking hurt for so fucking long. And for just as long, I've been pretending I'm okay. Just to get along. Just for, I don't know why. Maybe because no one wants to hear about my misery. Because they have their own. Well, fuck everybody. Amen. I was just like,
that's the movie.
Nobody writes anything in a movie like that, Yeah. And a lot of the things that the characters would say, it felt like it was from him, like almost like a diary entry, not just Philip Seymour Hoffman, but like that the Millicent Weems where like she has the earpiece.
Yeah.
And she's like talking him through his death and like telling him everyone is everyone. No story is more important than anyone else's. Like, I don't know. It just.
Even Sammy.
Oh, that scene he's so funny and hilarious. Like, they have the scene where he gets cast and. Oh, yeah, it's right here.
He
it's
immediately.
Right here. I've watched you forever, Caden. But you've never really looked at anyone other than yourself. So watch me. Watch my heart break. Watch me jump. Watch me learn that after death, there's nothing. There's no more watching. There's no more following. No love. Say goodbye to Hazel for me. And say it to yourself, too. None of us have much time. Like,
bro, that shit got hella meta.
and then what was the other one right after he jumped? Caden. I didn't jump, Sammy. The man stopped me before I jumped. Get up. I didn't jump. Like it has hilarious moments that are just like absurd and dark. It's a weird mix that like it's like when you taste something that's like it's got like cinnamon, spicy, sweet, it's like all of this can go together. I had no idea. But here we are.
This movie is dark as hell.
Yeah.
It's very dark.
But in its own unique way.
Very unique. Very unique. And like I said, I love Philly. My boy Philly C.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, man.
What a guy.
He played a sweaty, freaky creep once again. Nobody can do melancholy like this motherfucking Charlie Kaufman. He can do melancholy for your ass. I like this film. I was very surprised that I liked it. Because this is not my vibe.
I was going to say, too, I sort of wish you had watched it earlier. I don't want to tell you, like, when to watch it. But for me, I feel like the measure of a good film, sometimes you watch a film and immediately you're just like, I liked everything about that. I love it, And sometimes you watch a film and you don't know what to think. You don't know how to feel. But days after, maybe even weeks after, you still think about it, like something in it just like won't leave you. And for me, I'm like, I've learned to acknowledge that means I like it at this point in life. Whether it's music,
or if you can
a
like
movie,
relate to it in a way.
Yeah, it's just like if I can't stop thinking about it and I'm not sure why exactly, like that means I like it. Or it's soon gonna become my favorite thing.
Looking for that poster on the wall coming soon.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I would give it I'd probably give it like an 80, 88, 85, 88. Yeah. Something like that.
I'm gonna go I'll go 80. I'm gonna just go 80.
All right.
I enjoyed it as well.
Smooth 80.
I did feel like a lot of the stuff in it does kind of go over your head the first time, and I don't want to say like that's an intentional thing, but I guess I can take a couple points away for that. Maybe I'll regret having said that at some point.
I don't think nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, like
I think that's why a lot of people probably walked away saying it was pretentious. I mean, this is something that I think require a second or maybe even a third viewing.
Yeah.
But upon first viewing, I didn't immediately understand everything.
Yeah.
I was still taking it in like I just got off the roller coaster. You know what I mean? Like a very sad ass roller coaster. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, so this is the end. This is what happened. Now what? So I looked up a couple things about it, and I was like, all right, now that makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Did I like the film? Yeah. Enough to give it an 85.
And honestly, I'm trying to think of like the last time I saw a movie that I found like kind of depressing, but there were also moments in it that made me like laugh, like literally laugh out loud,
Yeah, yeah.
So I got to respect the fact that
it's hard
he can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
We will be back with
more on my screen.
Episode 10. Maybe we'll do something special for episode number 10.